Welcome to Power Code Music. In this presentation today, we're going to talk about the Tascam DP24 Digital Portastudio and mixing down tracks. Simply put, mixing down tracks is the process of making changes to individual track volume levels and stereo positions in order to produce a well-balanced stereo track. Pretty straightforward stuff, right? On the DP24, mixing down tracks includes recorded tracks, which are a maximum of 24 tracks, and a maximum of 8 inputs. Now, together with this, you can mix down a total of 24 tracks. In this presentation, we're going to cover the DP24's mixdown process at a high level. So the sequence kind of includes this. Number one, grouping instruments together and using the fader groups to manage them. Number two is we're going to look at the levels and the balance. Number three, we're going to move on to stereo positioning from there. Number four, we're going to talk about track equalization. And five, but not least, we're going to then talk about the send effects. So this is a kind of basic process that you can use to approach your mixdowns on the DP24 almost every time. Let's start with the fader group functionality for grouping tracks. When you begin the mixdown process, in many cases, it's often easier to group tracks that are similar first. Now, tracks like these would include drums and percussion, vocals, and guitars, for example. With the DP24, you can control multiple faders simultaneously for, a group of tracks. Now, to do this, you would set or release a group with the fader group button when that's lit. Now, let's look at how grouping tracks on the DP24 works. Press the fader group button. Adjust the level and balance between the tracks you want to control. Press the select buttons of the tracks you want to control. The lit select button indicates a track that has a group set. The track fader with the smallest number will be the master fader, and faders with a group set can be controlled. While a fader other than the master fader is operated, the select button of the master fader blinks. Now, this fader group retains the relative level difference from the master fader when you set it internally in decibels. The physical fader interval is not retained. Now, here's a couple points of note. When a group has been set, it won't be canceled even if you press the fader group button. That is, when you press it and the fader group button will blink. In this case, if the master fader is operated, the select buttons of the tracks within a group lights up during operation. If another fader is moved at that time, the select button of the master fader blinks during operation. Let's look at how UnGrouping Tracks works. Press and turn off all the select buttons of tracks within a group set. Press the fader group button. If you press the fader group button before turning off all the buttons and there is still a lit button, the fader group button blinks to indicate that the group setting is still active. Keep in mind that after canceling the group setting, the positions of the physical faders and the actual fader levels, that is the internal levels, may not match. In such a case, when you move the physical fader, the internal fader then matches the physical fader value, and the physical fader value will then control the level. It'll take it over. In this case, a sudden level change may occur. So if you're wearing your headphones, be aware of this because you might get a nasty spike. Finally, after setting a group, if it is released or added to and the master fader is changed, the track level is reset to the physical fader value. Next, let's talk about the levels and balance. Naturally, we use the track faders to adjust the relative levels of the tracks. The stereo faders adjust the overall level. When monitoring the stereo level meters on the display, adjust the level until it's acceptable. Keep an eye out though, because if the volume is too loud, the sound will be distorted Pretty obvious, right? But really, when you look at the track meters on the display, they show the recorded signal levels of the tracks. These meters do not change when the track faders are changed. Let's move on and take a look at the stereo positioning. Here is where you can add a sense of space to your mix. The stereo field consists of placement, of course, from left to right and from front to back. Now, when you mix your song, it's important that you plan and set your instruments wherever you need them or want them to be on the virtual stage that's supported by your listener speakers. For example, if instruments in your mix occupy a similar frequency range, experiment with panning them opposite of each other. You don't need to pan them like hard left or hard right away from each other. For example, a guitar pan slightly to the left will complement a keyboard pan slightly to the right. Use the pan knobs on the mixer section of each track to set the stereo position of that track signal. Let's move on and talk about track equalization. Equalization is the process commonly used to alter the frequency response of an audio system using linear filters. Equalizers are most simply frequency volume controllers. This is because they can change the amplitude of audio signals at specific frequencies. For example, when applying EQ to a voice recording, if the track sounds cloudy or muddy, roll off 300 to 400 hertz. For additional clarity, roll off 100 to 300 hertz. Again, be careful and experiment for the best sound. If the track has a lot of hiss, roll off 3 to 5 kilohertz. Here are some good EQ approaches to remember. The first is less is more. Next, have a plan for what you're trying to achieve. Don't just make random changes. The third is never rely on EQ to save your mix. If it comes down to it, just re-record your tracks. And the last but not least is don't apply EQ while in solo mode. It's just never a good idea. On the DP24, each track has a 3-band equalizer. The equalizer setting is made on the mixer screen for tracks 1 through 24. Let's look at how to use the equalizer on the DP24. First, press the mixer button to open the mixer screen. Adjust the track equalizer to the desired settings. Use the select button of each track to select the desired track you would like to apply the equalizer on. Use the high, mid, and low gain knobs to adjust the gain of each band. Use the high, mid, and low frequency knobs to adjust the center frequency of each band. Use the mid Q knob to set the resonance, that is the width, of the mid frequency band. Now, settings in this area range from 0.25 to 16. The default is 0.5. Press the equalizer button to turn the equalizer on or off, and use the input source A through H buttons to select the inputs to set the equalizer on. Now, after making these changes, press the home button to return to the home screen. Last but not least, let's talk about the send effects. It's pretty hard to mix down today without effects. The DP24 has 3 types of send effects. You adjust the level of the signal sent to the send effect from each track by using the Effect 1 and Effect 2 knobs. The return level from the send effect can be adjusted on the send effect screen. A practice I use is to record whatever tracks I can dry first and then add effects as needed during Mixdown. Now, this helps me to stay more flexible and helps to avoid me getting stuck with effects that I may want to change later. Like, for example, this would apply to like drums, percussion, vocals, and acoustic guitar. Another good practice is to follow the speed rule. The faster the song, the less reverb and delay you use. And this helps you to maintain clarity in your song. The slower the song, generally the more reverb and delay you can use. Now remember that with effects, again, less is more in many cases, so experiment to get the sound that's right for you. Now don't get me wrong, if it's the ultimate goal of your production to overwhelm your listeners with tons of effects based on your requirements, then go for it. Let's move on to using Send Effects. Press the Effects button to open the effects screen. Press the F3 or Select button to select from one of 3 available effects types. These would include reverb, delay, and chorus. Now you can't use multiple effects simultaneously, so keep that in mind. Align the cursor with the parameter that you want to select, and then use the jog data dial to set that parameter. The return from the send effect is then mixed with the stereo signal. After making the changes to the effect setting, press the Home button to return to the home screen. Now at this point, use the Send Effects 1 knob to adjust the level of the signal sent to the send effect for each track. Now here's a point of note. When using external effects, connect the output of your external effects processor, that is the returns, to inputs either A through H on the back of the unit. Now by assigning the connected input to the stereo bus, you can return the effect sound to the stereo bus. For details on how to do this and for more information, watch my video Tascam DP24 Digital Portastudio using external effects on this channel. Happy mixing. Well, that is a wrap. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up and click the subscribe button on your screen right now and join our group. We have new videos coming out every 7 to 10 days, and we would love to have you be a part of our group. Also, leave a comment in the comment section below and let us know what you think about this video. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. While you're here, listen to some of the music on the channel, watch the videos, and let us know what you think about that too. Thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.